So tell me, David, about your keynote session at this year's Offshore Europe. What can we expect from it?
So at the session, I'm hosting a panel session which is looking at the challenges around the attraction, retention and the development of talent for our industry. We've obviously gone through a phase of significant change and challenge in the industry, and we're seeing a large reduction in overall experience base and capacity. Now, as the business settles down and as we go through the new normal and the new reality, we will need an ever-growing pool of talent to sustain our industry for the next 20, 30 years. So the challenge is, how do we attract talent? How do we make our industry relevant to the young generation coming into employment today? What skill sets do we need? And how can we attract those and develop that talent in the different areas and different regions around the world? So our panel session will bring together a number of leaders from international operators, national operators, large international contractors, as well as the education and young professional pools to debate the subject and bring perspective to the conversation to see what ideas we can bring and how we can map this out going forward. In addition, we're conducting a survey of young professionals across the globe to try and assess what is their perception of the industry. Has that changed significantly in the last 2 or 3 years? And just how attractive are we? Another key question in this is, are we taking only a European perspective, or indeed is the industry, the oil and gas industry, still seen as being very attractive in other regions, be it Africa, be it the Middle East, be it Asia or elsewhere?
Now, Aker Solutions has always been the champion for bringing new skills and talent into the oil and gas industry. What would you say to young people considering a future within the sector?
So the oil and gas sector is still, for me, and I've been in this business for 30 odd years now, really attractive. Some of the challenges, the places we go, the type of operations that we have to put in place are really technically challenging and really great at expanding your career and your experience base. But actually, more importantly, I think, as a message going forward, is the skill sets and capability that we need for the oil and gas sector are equally applicable across the renewables and indeed across a broad range of industries. From my own perspective, I very much see the future of oil and gas and renewables and the energy sector more broadly becoming much more tightly integrated. So the interdependency of renewable technologies with the power distribution, indeed future storage systems, and the oil and gas assets that will help to feed into that network will become very tightly integrated. And therefore skills and experience will be transferable right across that domain.
So tell me how the relationship has changed between the offshore operators, the contractors, and the global supply chain within the past couple of years.
So we're on a journey, and the industry reacted as the industry has always done in terms of cutting cost and effectively squeezing the supply chain all the way through levels, from the operators through the tier one contractors like ourselves, right the way through the supply chain. But we're now moving beyond that. What is absolutely clear for us as an industry is the need for us to make it work at $40 or $50 oil. So for us going forward, the only way that we can make the industry work and make the North Sea economically viable is delivering the solutions, delivering the production in new ways. That can only be achieved through collaboration and changing the business models and the underlying business relationships that we have.
We've heard a lot of the term collaboration over recent years, but is it actually working? Is it actually taking place? What good examples have you got of collaboration in action that's yielded positive results?
Again, there's a spectrum. We've seen some very entrenched old thinking in some parts of the sector, but we're seeing some really engaging collaboration coming into the market right across the industry. Within Aker Solutions itself, we are very much a business that partners and works with a range of partners and technical providers to create new solutions. More recently, we put in place collaborations with MAN and turbo diesel to allow us to develop a subsea compression system, and that's been highly successful and really sets the benchmark for new technologies and new innovation in the subsea sector. And we see a number of other relationships like that being built within our portfolio of offering, as well as across the industry and indeed with the operators themselves. And I think it's fundamental, the change in relationship between the operator and the broader supply chain, that will allow us to succeed as an industry.
The technical programme features some subsea sessions. How important do you see subsea innovation in the future of the oil and gas sector going forward?
So certainly from a UK perspective, a UKCS, and as we look to that maximising the economic recovery, I believe absolutely that subsea is going to be a key element of that. And really there's a couple of aspects of that. The first is when we look at the existing infrastructure, and key for the success of the North Sea going forward is our ability to sustain and continue using some of that key infrastructure, the production units, the export pipeline systems, etc. What we need to be able to do is ensure that we can feed new production and new areas of production into that existing infrastructure to make them economically viable, which will allow us to sustain the life of those assets and keep them viable for a much longer period. So I see the challenges of the subsea technology, or the opportunities that the new technologies have to supporting both that development of the existing infrastructure in the way that we can extend the reach of our tieback system. So historically, there have been a few kilometres to a few tens of kilometres. With the new technologies now coming into play in terms of electrification, we can significantly extend that out, potentially up to hundreds of kilometres. In addition to that, then we can look at the ability to deploy booster systems, multi-phase booster pumps, all the way through to gas compression, subsea, and indeed complete subsea processing systems to radically rethink how we tie back in production to the hubs. The second area that I think the subsea technology will be key in enabling the future of the North Sea is in managing and supporting the development of the small pools. So to create the puddle hopping solution that will allow us to very cost effectively go in, develop a small pool, pick up and recover all of the assets and equipment and move on to the next field.
So how quickly do you see decom technologies growing over the next few years?
So obviously for the North Sea and the UKCS in particular, decommissioning has been this mammoth work scope that keeps coming and keeps disappearing into the distance. But it is real and it is coming at us now. The challenge for us is not only technology, and there will be key technology enablers in that process. But again, for me, it's much more about the decommissioning strategy and how we actually go about decommissioning facilities. And it's not just the decommissioning itself. It's really stepping back before that point, going back 3 years, 5 years, or indeed 10 years, thinking very holistically about that late life transition. So how do we maximize the production? How do we maximize the economic value of that facility and the field and the production around it before we get to the ultimate decommissioning point, so that we can effectively wind down the production whilst preparing for the decommissioning, so at the point of final stopping of production, we're able to then very efficiently and effectively complete the decommissioning, both from a well's perspective, from a facilities, as well as a subsea perspective.
What would you say to people considering coming to Offshore Europe this year? Why should they come? And what do they stand to achieve from coming along to Offshore Europe?
Like everybody in our industry, we're all very focused on the day job and the day-to-day challenges. Coming to an event such as Offshore Europe, and it is one of the premier global events, it is a chance to take a time out from your day job to actually look up from your desk, from your laptop, from your iPhone, to look at what's going on in the industry, to engage with your peers and to see what other innovation is going on. Many times I've seen at Offshore Europe where chance encounters, where conversations over a coffee have sparked an idea that's led through a very clear chain to a new solution, a new partnership, a real major innovation. So I think I would strongly recommend people coming to Offshore Europe for that alone. You know, the theme of this year's show is about embracing the new reality and reinventing our industry. And we want to be able to do that with everyone fully engaged.